This week, you're learning about all the different characteristics of life that also serve to explain not only the diversity of living things, but also the unity of life. And I want to begin this presentation by making reference to this amazing property of life. Yes, life can be diverse, but there are going to be many characteristics that are shared by all living things. Take a look, for example, at DNA. From bacteria all the way to the most complex mammals, you're going to find out that the genetic code is going to be made up of sequences of 4 different letters, 4 different nitrogenous bases, which is what is found in DNA. Those bases, as you know, are adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. Another unifying feature of all living things is going to be that all living things are made of cells. We've learned that there are 2 different kinds of cells: prokaryotic, which lack a nucleus, and membrane-bound organelles, and eukaryotic cells, which actually do have a nucleus, and they have many different types of membrane-bound organelles. One of the core themes in biology is going to be that living things are going to be subject to the process of natural selection, which can lead to changes in the characteristics of a species over time, which is what we call evolution. So let's explore this core theme of biology, the core theme of evolution, as we begin to explore in greater depth the beauty of life. Natural selection can help explain, for example, what you can see in terms of an organism being well adapted to life in a surrounding environment. Take a look, for example, at these little organisms. Maybe I can use my laser pointer. If I was in the classroom, I would be also doing the same thing, misplacing my markers. You're getting a little bit of an experience of what life in the classroom would be like. You're sometimes absent-minded professor. All right, so here I have my laser pointer, and you can probably see the little red dot. Okay, so look at this little single-cell organism on the lower left part of your screen. This is a paramecium. It's a one-cell eukaryotic organism, meaning there is a nucleus inside of the cell. And on the outside, it is notable how there are like many of these little hair-like projections that is actually not hair, but a cellular structure called cilia. Now, cilia can also be seen in other organisms that are called eukaryote. For example, in the human body, this organ you see right here called the trachea or windpipe. In the inside of this organ, there's going to be a lining of similar hair-like structures called cilia. And when you look at the unity of life, okay, so here you're going to see that a cross-section of cilia in the trachea has the same structure as a cross-section of cilia in this single-cell aquatic organism that you can find in ponds and lakes and rivers. And the similarity is going to be in how these structures called microtubules come in pairs. There are 9 pairs of microtubules in the surroundings, in the perimeter, and 2 single microtubules in the middle. So what does that have anything to do with evolution and natural selection? Well, many biologists explain that these similarities can exist in organisms that look completely different. I mean, think about a person and think about just this single cell organism, that those similarities are going to exist because natural selection has favored the development of these structures, which make organisms better adapted for surviving and for reproducing. Now, the one who proposed this idea of evolution by a mechanism of natural selection was Charles Darwin. And in his theory, he postulated, he proposed 3 different observations about the natural world and 2 inferences. Let's take a look at those observations he made. One of those is that any population you can study, you can go and take a look at a population of red-tailed hawks, is going to show a great deal of variation within the population, within the species. Here you see, for example, a flamingo. And even though you can go and see a population of red-tailed hawks or a population of flamingos, and they all look the same to us, in reality, there are many subtleties, many variations, many differences. Our eyes simply are just not trained to detect those differences, but the differences are there, not only on the outside, but also on the inside. A second observation Charles Darwin made is that populations always produce far more offspring than are capable of surviving or even having enough resources in the environment to support those offspring that are made in a population. So as a consequence, there's always going to be a great deal of mortality. Some of the young are eaten by predators. Some are sick and die. Some are going to just not get enough resources to be well nourished and healthy, and so they're going to die. What Darwin also observed by his observations of nature is that species are going to be well adapted for life in their environments. Again, in this slide, we see different types of birds, adaptations for bird of prey, which feeds on meat, is going to be talons, those types of nails in the toes of the bird. When you look in terms of the feet of a flamingo, it's going to be a webbing between the toes, which makes it beneficial for them to stand and move in water. Penguins also have the similar type of webbing, but penguins can't fly. Flamingos can. Instead of wings for flight, penguins are going to have wings that are modified for moving in water, swimming, diving. And so what Darwin said is that those characteristics we see in living things are going to be examples of adaptations for better surviving in their own respective environments. The inferences are going to be two. He proposed that individuals that are inheriting these beneficial traits, which we call adaptations, are going to have a greater chance of surviving. How do they survive? Well, they are better fed. They can escape from predators better. They're going to be better able to secure shelter and resources. And consequently, they are also going to end up producing more offspring. And so if you think about these organisms with the best adaptations, with the best characteristics, producing more and more offspring, what will naturally happen in a population is that the frequency of individuals in a population showing those beneficial characteristics is going to increase because these characteristics, these adaptations are inheritable, meaning that they are passed through our genetic code from one generation to another one. And you can see in this example, in this illustration, how a population of beetles have different tones of colors. If a bird, for example, is a specialist at detecting the lighter colored beetles against a dark background, then the lighter color beetles are going to not do well. They are going to be picked up, they're going to be eaten, but these with the darker body coloration can avoid detection by the bird, they can survive, and eventually they're going to be producing more offspring. So these darker colored beetles survive, produce more offspring, and over time, if you look at this population in comparison to the original population on the left-hand side, the resulting population is going to have a greater proportion of beetles with the dark color, which is the adaptation that is helpful for avoiding detection from the predator bird you see here. And so that's essentially how Darwin proposed that natural selection could lead to changes in the characteristics of a species over time. Now, how much time would it take for this type of change to happen? Darwin was someone interested in horticulture, but also breeding. He bred pigeons and fancy pigeons. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those birds. It can be, it's not just the pigeon you see in a park feeding on whatever people are dropping, throwing at them. They can be quite beautiful birds. And the process of making a lot of these species that we use for our enjoyment is called artificial selection or selective breeding. Selective breeding can produce a lot of changes in a relatively small amount of time. Let me use one more example. I want to introduce you to my teaching assistant, which is always here by my side whenever I'm grading or recording videos. Come here, Colette. Come here. So I want to introduce you. Here's my teaching assistant. This is my Colette. This is my French bulldog. And she's the biggest lap dog you can ever imagine. And she has a lot of real good quality traits. I love my dog. Would you believe it if I told you that my Colette is closely related to the European wolf? What similarities are there between a wolf and a French bulldog? Well, you can see that there are features of a canine, but really, I mean, wolves are bigger animals. They have big fangs. My poor Colette, her teeth are all crooked because of the shape of the face, how the face is all, pushed up. So anyway, Darwin reasoned if breeders can make a species through artificial selection with very different characteristics in a short amount of time, then he proposed that natural selection, I'm going to put her down, natural selection acting over millions and millions of years could be responsible for producing the variety of living things we see right now. And so that is Darwin's theory of natural evolution through the process of natural selection. And it is what in biology many people propose can be an explanation for the diversity of all the different kinds of things you see in this planet. It is a theory that needs additional support from more tested hypotheses. And in scientists, it is never appropriate to say we've discovered it, we have found the answer for everything. And certainly there are many things that evolution and natural selection have not been able to explain. And that continues to be the subject of much research and investigation. So you should not be disappointed about that. So that's all for right now. And I hope you continue enjoying learning about biology. Goodbye.